Welcome, guests, to another edition of Surviving Change. Having been in the field of education for 25 years, I can't even remember what my thoughts were when I first entered into the classroom. But one thing I know for sure is that when I entered college, my life was already planned out. I was going to teach, then I was going to become an administrator, then I was going to go on and open my own school. That did not quite happen that way. And so for those students who are in college thinking that they're going to get out into the big wide world and start the career that they planned on starting when they entered college, nah, maybe not. Today's guest is here to share with us how her life transitioned to the point where she knew for certain what it was she was to do. But that didn't happen right out of college. So let's hear from our guest today, Kindraland Edwards.
Hello.
Hi, Kindraland. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I know that today you are in the field of teaching, but those first moments, what was the rallying cry? When you left high school, what did you know that you were supposed to do or were told you had to do?
When I left high school, my ultimate dream was to become an obstetrician gynecologist. So that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to go to school for. Those were like my footsteps that I was planning myself to go into, and it didn't quite pan out like that. I got to college. The first semester was okay, it was cool, and then like as I got more into college, I was like, nah, I really don't want to be obstetrician gynecologist. Maybe I'll try pharmacy, but I was already in it, so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to quit, so I'm going to go ahead and get the degree in science. So I ultimately got that degree, but the wanting to be a doctor kind of changed after that.
Okay, and so with that degree, what's out there for someone with a degree in biology? Is that what you had a degree in? What's out there for you if you don't go into medicine?
Well, pretty much you just kind of got to fish until you get something, get hooked on. So you pretty much kind of go through, well, with me, I went through a temp agency, and that temp agency kind of guided me into like a medical profession, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it kind of gave me a job so I wouldn't be at home not doing anything after college. So it gave me a job, but it wasn't really what I really wanted to do.
So what did you end up doing in that job? What did you end up doing?
So I worked at that job for about 3 years, and I pretty much manufacture blood products for the American Red Cross. So it was pretty much something to do every single day. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got off at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was just something that kept money rolling in.
Okay. Now at this point, were you still living at home, or had you already, kind of stepped out into the big wide world and taken care of yourself?
Right. So I came back home, living with my parents. I thought, getting out of college, my mom was going to give me that break. Like, okay, until you find your niche, you can come on. No, my mom was like, you have like 2 months and then you have to find you something, whether that be, I did not want to go to fast food. I did not want to go to retail. I was like, no, this is not what I want to do. I didn't get a degree for this. So at least try to find something in the medical field. So that's where the Red Cross came into play. So it was in medicine, it was medical. I felt like, oh, the American Red Cross, that's, legit. Like that's a big time corporation. So I feel like, okay, well, it's not the best, but it's not, fast food. So that's how I felt about it.
Okay, and knowing your parents, they both hustle. I mean, it's not, we just going to, lay back. When we go, whatever we're gonna do wholeheartedly.
Yes.
We work hard and everything. So how did a part of that hustling embed itself in you? Even when you were trying to figure out what to do, how did you begin to see some of those characteristics that your parents demonstrated, exemplified in your life as you're trying to figure it out?
So my mom's motto was, find a job like it's a job. If you don't have that job, you keep searching until you find it. So every day you wake up, that is your job, to find a job. So that was the hustle. When you go to sleep, if you didn't fill out applications, if you didn't make any calls, you weren't doing your job for that day. So my dad, he's like a military man, even though he was never in the military. He was always that person. Okay, let's get up, let's pray, let's go, let's make a new, something out of today. So it was never like you're gonna sleep on it. You're gonna keep working until something hit.
Okay, awesome. So after your 3-year stint with the American Red Cross, and I can imagine, you're doing that and you do feel some fulfillment because it is the American Red Cross and all the things that they are committed to doing. But at some point, that gets old.
Most definitely.
Okay, and so when it got old, then what was the challenge that you found for yourself in trying to move to the next step?
When it gets old, you hear different corporations are looking for different positions or whatever, and you feel like, should I step outside of that, or should I keep the security that I have, or should I venture out? And I really didn't want to move to another corporation and do the exact same thing that I was doing, because I just feel like this is mundane. This is the same thing every day in and out. So I didn't want to keep doing that. So I was trying to find new avenues of what was good for me. I'm very crafty. I like to do arts and crafts. I like to sing. I like to dance. So I like to do things like that. But opportunity opened up for me to, help in the Sunday school department. So I was like, okay, well, this is something that I like to do because it gives me the opportunity to be creative. But it was outlet from what I was doing every day. So I really liked that.
Okay, and so that creativity didn't necessarily bring any dividends, but it wasn't, like you said, an outlet for you to develop yourself as a person and to not feel that you were stuck just working so that, you could make ends meet, but you actually had an outlet to be fulfilled as a woman.
Correct.
Okay, and so from that outlet, what were some other opportunities that came your way?
So just being a Sunday school teacher, I was able to, a position open for me to be an after school director. So that kind of opened up a new door to work with more kids and be able to kind of venture out into more creative avenues for myself. So it gave me a lot more fulfillment. Even though every day I had to get up and go to work from 3 to 12, it gave another option. So when I got off from work, this is what I'm going to do today. This is what we're going to do with the kids today. This is what I'm going to be able to do. So it gave me opportunities to plan. Like, it wasn't always what I wanted to do at work, but that was like that sunlight that I had at the end of the day. So I get to play, we get to have fun, we get to do games and things like that. So that was like my massive outlet that I really, really liked. Like, I really enjoyed more than I thought that I would. In anything that I was doing. So that was kind of that thing that kept driving me. Even though I might have had a bad day at work that day, I knew that I was going to the kids, so that kind of made that day a little bit more fulfilling.
And so now, I'm sure that at some point, if you didn't do it, maybe your parents said like, okay, Kindraland, you have this degree in biology.
Yes.
And you leave work to go play with the children. So now how do we make this blend? Like, how do we find a way where you can actually, make this a lot better? So I question myself, because I've never wanted to do anything but be an educator. Well, I take that back. I did want to take Monica Kaufman's job when I was growing up. I was going to be the next Monica Kaufman, and that didn't necessarily pan out, but it was something about being around children that pushed me into my calling. And so at what point did you recognize that, hey, maybe there's something out there for me with working with these children?
I don't think that ever came to like is there, an activity or a avenue, but I will say working with the school that I was working with, one of their employees was leaving. Mm-hmm. And they asked me what my degree was in, what I went to school for, whatever, and I told them that I went to school for science. And the position for a science teacher opened up. Mm. So with that position opening up, that was like, I had been praying and asking, for a career change. Okay, this is not what I want to do. Like, okay, I need something that's going to give me a different thing, because my personality with my job was conflicting with who I was. I'm a really happy, like, joyful person. I like to smile. That job is not like that. Like, they're very mundane. I was pretty much too happy for the job, and I had to kind of tone who I was down to fit in the spectrum of the job.
Of being a vampire, because you were playing with blood.
Correct. So it wasn't really fitting for me. So I was asking God to give me like a career change. And so the opportunity came up to do something that I love, which is science, and to work with kids. So I was okay, well, it's science. I never really wanted to be a teacher. Like, that was not in my spectrum. I wanted to be a doctor. This is what I want to do. Doctor, kids, it's a job. So, it's better than what I was at. So I was okay, well, so I walked into that door of a science teacher.
Okay.
So
Now, how were you able to blend some of the creativity? Because to me, when I think of science, I think of something that's really rigid. That you have to know about the cell and the microplasm and the this, that, and the other, whatever
yes.
all those other words are that never gave me a thrill when I took science. So how were you able to bring in some of your sunshine, your creative spirit into a very regimented subject, according to me? Forgive me if I am being a little biased.
Okay, so science has always been like that thing that I loved. I went to school, I went to a special school for science. So science is just something that I loved doing. So me being the person I am, I made music to the songs. I made the sales songs fun. I made the activities fun. So I would try to do activities that involved eating. If we talked about the digestive system, so I would do things that we had to eat. Or if we talked about the skeletal system, they had to do a skeletal system song. If we were talking about breathing, we've done like fit challenges and health challenges. So to kind of bring different things that they go through on a regular basis, try to bring it back to the classroom. They've had to draw, they've had to color. So different things that outside of the box, they've had to do. Make a cake, build a city. They had to do, different things that made kids really want to be kids and made me be a big kid myself. I tried to bring it to the classroom.
That's awesome. So was there any pushback from the children? Like, because I'm going to tell you, I have students who come to my class and they'll say, why are you so happy? Or why are you so this? And so they're, initially, I'm the one that's looking like the bad guy when I'm trying to, make it exciting. And then on those days when I'm just not feeling like, why are you not smiling? Why are you not this? So did you find that you were getting some pushback maybe from some of the students or maybe even from some of your colleagues who were like, well, when they come to my class, they're going to do what they do in Edward's class, but they're not going to do that in this class. Did you find you getting any pushback with your sunlight?
I didn't feel like I got any sunlight. I think that it was more encouraged. The sunlight that I had in that environment, it was more encouraged to do more, to be more engaging with the children. So I didn't feel like there was any, backlash on that part. Everybody was kind of on board with it, and it was a welcome change.
Okay. Did that spread to others? Did you find that others were attempting to incorporate some of that in their classes?
Yes.
And that's the big difference, I believe, when we find our niche and our calling, is that it's not just about us.
Correct.
It's about those that we serve, it's about those who are around us, and we begin to see. I think confirmation for me was to not so much get the encouraging words and the approval, but confirmation I was doing what I'm supposed to do is when others wanted to emulate or wanted to find out what it was that made what I did in my classroom so exciting. And so that's a big thing. So you're spending some years, you're doing the science teaching. At any point did you say, hey, maybe I want to go back into the medical profession, or did you look to see if there was something else you could do?
Not really. Like I guess my long-term goals, I wanted like that name, Dr. Edwards. Like that's what I wanted to be called. Like I wanted Dr. Edwards. But I was trying to find like ways within education how I could be a doctor. So those are some long-term goals that I have for myself, is to be a doctor in education, to have that doctor, but just in a different avenue. So that's what I'm working towards now.
Okay. So let's go to the personal aspect, in that whenever there's a change in our lives, we have to have, sometimes it's difficult to have that change. And while you have presented to us that it was really smooth for you, that even though you didn't want to do the work at the Red Cross, it was too mundane for you to mind doing it, but it didn't really pick up on your personality, that you found joy with after school, and then you found joy with teaching, and then you spread that joy to others. Was there a point where in your personal life you just felt, hey, I got this going on, but is there something else that, where you not feel, where you empty at some point?
I guess, so there was a time I played competitive kickball, and I loved kickball, and there was a time that I broke my leg. So I had to depend on other people to do for me. So I had to be pushed in a wheelchair. I had a walker. I just was at a place like I just felt old, and I just was like, nobody gonna want nobody in a wheelchair, no walker. I was all in my head. in myself, and I really had to like learn how to depend on other people, which is not something that I like to do. Like I like to, I like to be that person to help others, and to have to depend on other people was not really what I wanted to do. I lived by myself for a long time, and so now being in this situation, I had to move out of my home, and I had to move back with my parents. So I was like, Lord, I'm moving back with my mom and my daddy. Like, I have to now follow my mom and my daddy rules. Whatever they say, I pretty much have to do. So I'm like, this is not, I thought we was going in a good direction. I feel like this is a setback. And so now I have to like pretty much like surrender and like let other people help me. And that was like a really trying time for me, and not being as active as I like to be. So, I said I picked up a little bit more weight than I wanted to. So it kind of brought me down into this really depressed state because I feel like I was immobile.
Okay. All right. So who did you end up depending on the most? Because one thing that I noticed is that when I got at my lowest point, and I've talked with other guests about this, that there's that alone time where you do some reflecting. And so during your alone time, of course you were dependent physically, but in that time where it's just you, your mind, your emotions, what was going through your head? Did you have some type of aha moment where you said, okay, this is not necessarily about me depending on people physically, this is about who I depend on, spiritually and emotionally? Did you have a moment like that?
So the person I would say that I depended on the most was my mom. She was like my caregiver. I remember one time she was trying to help me and like forgot which leg was hurt, and so she like picked up the other leg and I started screaming. But I screamed and she ran out the room and I was laughing, so she didn't know whether I was in pain or was I laughing. But my mom was like that spiritual person and kind of tried to keep me grounded, and this is not a setback, this is a setup, and you have to continue to not sit and wallow, because that's what the enemy wants you to do, is to sit and wallow, but you have to keep moving. It gave me more opportunities because I really couldn't move, gave me time to read my word a lot more, to really try to find God as my center, and finding my joy again, which my mama was sowing seeds into me, which she's always sown seeds to us as children, but she started to sow those seeds and water those seeds, and over time it started to grow. So
okay. And that growth, did it spread to what you were doing in the church as well?
It did spread what I was doing in church, and at that time I didn't want to go to church because I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want people to see me at a low state. I didn't want to go to church, so it was more like a force that you have to go, because I was at home. I didn't want to be around people because this is not how I wanted people to see me. But my mom, my dad, they kind of was like, okay, we're gonna get up, we're gonna go. So going to church and seeing my friends, and my friends was like, oh, come on, let's do this, let's sing. No, I don't want to sing. And they would take the clips off the wheelchair and push me up. So I was like, okay, y'all, really. But my friends really helped me to be like, it's okay. We all get down sometimes, but having friends around you will help you boost yourself back up.
And it's amazing because what your situation was temporary, and you knew it was temporary. And I think what we forget is when we have these situations, if we're not prepared for them, that something as temporary as having a broken leg will debilitate us in a manner that could impact the rest of our lives. So with the support of your mom and with the support of your friends, you continue to be involved, in your church. And did it impact you at work in any way, or was this an injury that you suffered during the summer?
No, I had a personal chauffeur. So my mother, she chauffeured me to school every day. But the students really helped me. So they gave me encouragement. They wanted to push me and take me here and take me there. So my students kind of gave me that extra thing, okay, well, I'm here, but I didn't feel like, coming to work was like, oh, Lord, I'm at work, the kids get on my nerves. It wasn't like that. They were willing to help. They were willing to do what I asked them to do. They made the transition very smoothly for me to come back to work. They actually encouraged me to get up. They encouraged me to walk. They encouraged me to do a lot more than the doctors told me to do. So they kind of pushed me to get back to who I was.
Okay. And so who you are as a person who enjoys the liveliness, the creativity, and was there at some point where you realized that you needed to take that creativity to another level, maybe to a different place of employment, so that, maybe that you could grow? Because you have been teaching for a while. You left one field. Once again, you had a degree in biology. You thought about, okay, I could get a doctorate now in education. So in order to continue that growth and to continue to move forward, where did that lead you?
Teaching for 7 years, I kind of got to a place where it was really hard for me to go back and forth. So I went ahead and just let my, rented out my home, and I just went ahead and moved my parents permanently. But driving from where we live all the way to my place of work was a lot. Like, that was an hour drive to work, an hour drive from work, and then having activities at church and activities at school really just kind of tired me out. And I was like, okay, well, kind of fighting with yourself, like, do you really want to go find something else? But you're comfortable here, everybody knows you. Do you want to move out? Things like that. And that was really hard to just decide, do you move somewhere closer or do you stay where you are? So a window of opportunity did come about to where I was able to move to a school that was closer to my house. Versus where I was currently at. So I did get opportunity to move to a new school system and be able to start working. So my first year was this year at my new school, in my new position. So the transition was hard. Like, there was not like an easy transition, something I didn't want to do, but where I was really helped me, like, gave me that foundation I needed to transfer over to a new program.
Okay, and so your new school was a public school.
Yes.
So how was that different from working in the private school sector?
So I guess for me, the small settings were very much different, which you have like a total of 15 students. You have a total of 150 students in the public school sector. The community that you have with a private school is not that same community in a public school. You have your student, your school, your student, and their family. You have the student, partial family commitment. You have a school commitment, partial commitment from the student, partial commitment from the family. So there is a big difference in as far as the two entities. You get to be a little bit more intimate with your students, to get to know them a little bit better. Public school is not the same. So you can get to the parents a lot quicker in private school. In public school, you got to chase them. So those are some things that I had to learn about the two.
Okay, and so in doing that though, how did that adjustment come about? Because I'm sure you're not running away from, the public sector. So how did that transition come about for you?
I will say, coming into the situation, I felt like I was like way over my head. Like, I was, okay, is this really what I wanted? Like, okay, I had been preparing for this, but this, like, throwing you in is a totally different thing. So things that you do in, a private sector are different in public sector. So you have a lot more teachers in this public school. You have a lot more rules and regulations that you have to abide by, a lot more deadlines that you have to meet. The students have to be at a certain level to move on. So the pressure is a lot more in a public school than I thought it was going to be. But I made it. So
you made it, all right?
I did.
And the support that you gained from your family, the foundation, I'm sure it was, you couldn't place a price on that, period, at the end, okay? So any regrets having to taken the path that you took? For some, the trend is out there, or the practice is out there, that we may not, college graduates may not end up in their field of choice when they go out into the work sector. So what type of encouragement could you give to that college graduate who is struggling to find his or her place in life and in a career. You spent 4 years in college, so something should have come out of that. So what would be the advice you would give to someone in the position that you were in when you left college?
I would say, just try different things. Don't just get stuck in, okay, well, I might have not gotten where I wanted to be when I got out, but don't stop. Keep going until you find that thing that really, really makes you happy. Like, it might not come today, like, you tried this, it didn't work, but you did try it. So you move on to the next thing. You might didn't like that, but you tried something else. So keep trying until you find that thing that really makes you happy. Because when you get to a place where you stop trying and you get stagnant, it's going to take you a much longer time to get there if you stop.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you, just from someone that's 25 years in, you right below 10, that you don't want to stop trying, because once you get comfortable, then it does become a chore. It doesn't become a joy. It becomes a chore. And so you don't want it to be that at all. Any regrets you have about taking the path that you've taken?
Not at all.
No regrets
at all.
I love what I do. Okay. All right. So now that you are, and we're getting ready to close, but now that you are getting ready to go to your second year in the public sector,
yes.
What is blossoming for you, Kindraland, in the horizon? Like you are a veteran now as far as public schools. What do you have to tell that new teacher that's coming in to the workplace?
Find you a veteran. A veteran will be your best friend, a person who you can go to, you can count on. Like, if you have those questions, let them be that that bulletin board, that person that you can go to and say, hey, this is what I need. How do I do this? How do I get it done without, being in the parameters of, what I'm supposed to be in? So I would say find you a veteran, find you somebody in your field, find you somebody that can be your mentor as you go through this path of trying to figure out education. So that would be my main thing. Find you a buddy that's going to be that person that's going to help you through that school year. Okay.
So what would be your word then as we close out, the word that you used to describe yourself before you got to this point, before your experience?
My word I would probably use would be stagnant. I felt like I was just kind of stuck. I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. I felt like I kind of got to a level that I had plateaued, and I really wasn't like pushing myself to do more, to be better. I was just comfortable. I was stagnant. So comfortable and stagnant.
Okay, and so now your word is?
What is my word? Rejuvenated.
Okay, and what's rejuvenated you?
Just being able to just be a lot more free with myself, free with my opportunities, not like limiting myself to one thing, trying new things, and if I don't like it, it's okay, but at least being able to try them and enjoying life, and you can't wait for other people to make that fulfillment for you. You have to go out and get it for yourself.
Okay, and so I'm going to just take this opportunity as we wrap up to thank you, because there are more people out there than ever who haven't found their place. And for those of you who may be in a situation that Kindraland was in, just know from her story that you don't have to be stagnant, that you can keep moving when you're not quite sure if you're going to go into the career of your choice, if you're not quite sure how the future is going to lay out. No one really knows, but we definitely have some foundations in place to give us the foothold we need to keep trying, to keep going, to keep moving until we get to that place of fulfillment. And even then, when you feel fulfilled, don't stop. Keep going, because there's so much more out there. Thanks again to my guest, Kindraland Edwards, and to those of you for joining us here today on Surviving Change. Once again, change is not something that we can avoid, but survival is a choice. So from Angela Addison, your host, continue to enjoy Surviving Change.